told me to stay around the projection up here. But one of the things I would like to start out with today, and a couple of weeks ago we had what we call, we come up with fancy terms for committees. So this, a couple of weeks ago we had a meeting of the Esser Committee. Now that's very original, and I come up with that name because we were going to talk about Esser funds. So it took me like 3 days to come up with that name, but I finally settled on that. And that was I'm going to say a wide array of representation throughout the community. Some folks that were at that meeting are here today. And then hopefully some of you that are here, we're looking at the possibility of doing a town hall here in the near future. So you might think about being at that meeting also. One of the things we did, this handout that we gave you today is the same handout we used in that first meeting a couple of weeks ago, but we added some things to it, and this is going to be a living document. So if you'll notice up at the top, I put updated 7/19/22, and then anything that I added from the first meeting until today, I put in, I highlighted. So I wanted to make that, there's some number differences, some things, and we'll kind of look at those as we go. This was also an article done in the paper. It was a 2-week series, and I think this is a good time to explain some of those bullet points and then the 2 plans later on. The first thing I wanted to do is kind of share, and I believe if you thumb back at the back of your handout, there's a couple of sheets with red highlighting. When we started a year and a half, 2 years ago, we just went around our facilities. And I'll say this, if you'll drive by our facilities real fast and squint your eyes, there's no problem. But if you walk into those facilities, you start making lists. And when we went through all 3 sites, we went to the high school, we made and these are the biggest needs we have. And then we prioritize those needs. And the things on those sheets at the high school and middle school that are highlighted are things that are done or that we're working on right now. A lot of those highlighted areas are roofing at the high school and middle school. We had some really bad areas where we've dealt with leaks for years, and there's no reason to do any other work if your roofs are leaking. So that's things you may have noticed in the past 6 months or so, a lot of roof work at the middle school and high school. So those are completed. We'll probably know sometime in November if it's working when we get something called rain. So they're working real well right now. I've not seen any leaks in the past month. So, but that stuff's ongoing, and you can kind of see as we go down that list kind of what we pinpointed at the middle school and high school that are specific needs that we need to prioritize. There's some smaller things that aren't on that list, but those are the big things. You'll notice, if you'll refer to the page that says grade school, wait a minute, there's not one. Because Miss Garman, our elementary principal, back here in the back, I was telling her when we went to the grade school to start a priorities list, I'm sorry, it was too overwhelming for me to start a needs list at the grade school. That's plan A and plan B, to be quite honest, that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. But you can kind of reference that if you see things going on at the middle school and high school, for example. We're just taking those things in order, attacking them, and trying to do the best we can. These things have taken a while to accumulate, and it's going to take a while to fix them. So it's just an ongoing thing. if you look at the progress within the last 2 years, we added to our bus fleet. We've added a total of 5 buses to our fleet, and there were some questions on that. But we lagged a little bit on keeping, generally, you try to buy a bus every year and rotate those through. We were kind of getting behind on that, so it was a good opportunity to upgrade that. We had some grant help on some of that. And then one of the ones, that 14 passenger bus, we have one right now. And to get a second 14 passenger, that allows us for sponsors such as the academic team. And they may take 10 kids to an academic meet on Thursday evening. Instead of us having to hire a bus driver and pay that bus driver from the time they leave to the time they get back, that sponsor can drive that 14 passenger bus. The one we have stays hot, especially in the springtime, and a second one was just going to pay dividends for us. And so, new buses. If you notice, one of the things I'm proud of, when we hired Cody Dawson as our ag teacher about 3 years ago, as high school principal, I told him coming in, if you'll grow that program, I'll advocate for you for a second ag teacher. Last year, about October, as superintendent, I just, hey, you have a minute, Cody? He comes up one afternoon and I said, you remember what we talked about when you came in? Well, it's time. Because you look at the numbers, look at the things that we're producing within that ag program. And so we have hired a second ag instructor for this coming year. And so we right now have on order, you know how ordering things are. We have a new ag truck ordered for that program. The roofing projects we talked about. If you look right now, and I'm crossing my fingers, the entryway at the high school. We have office staff reporting Monday. They're gonna have a mess because it's not completed. So we're working on that. We're kind of keeping our thumb on the contractor to get that done as quick as we can. But that's going to be a place where anybody coming from the outside cannot access the hallways where the kids are. If you've been up there in the past few years, you buzz in, but once you buzz in, you have access. And you know, in today's world, that's not the best case scenario. So we're trying to correct that and do some work there. If you'll notice on here, it should be in yellow. It said work will begin in a couple of weeks to replace the slab and steps in front of the gym. That's almost completed. And if you'll notice that our guys, with donation help of Okie Drilling with their pressure washer, are stripping all the paint off of that front retaining wall that looks terrible. And we're going to come back in, texture that and paint it, and see how that looks, and maybe that'll be a template on how we take care of the walls on that gym in the high school. But you'll kind of see that retaining wall hopefully come to life here in the next couple of weeks. Last summer, we did some work with the help of Stigler News Sentinel and Rosewood, some donations from them to upgrade in the lobby of our gymnasium. Now, I'm going to use this one and the wrapped activity buses, and I'm going to lump them together here. Must we have those things to function? No. We can pull up in a yellow bus, and we don't have to honor our All-Staters and our state champions in the way that lobby does. But I look at it similar to when I was this tall, and every Saturday I had dust and dirt caked on me, my clothes were dirty, my hair was messed up, because back then we went out and we played all day. And most of the time, Mom knew where you were. Probably not all the time, most of the time. But on Sunday morning, I didn't look like that. You know, we go to church more casually today, but not back then. I knew somewhere in the Bible it said you had to dress up for church. But you went in there, and Mom made sure, boy, when I had hair, it was nice, and I was dressed up and looked nice to go to church. And when we go somewhere, and you may have a different opinion on this, and that's fine to me. But in my opinion, when we take our kids somewhere, we have high expectations of those kids. We expect them to act a certain way. We expect them to perform a certain way. And we have a long list of what we expect from our students when they travel to different places. Wouldn't it be nice to send them there, and when they pull into that parking lot with 100 schools there, everybody knows do they have to know? No, they don't have to know. But it's nice to let our kids know we want to be proud when you show up, and we want people to know you're there. And it's a pretty minimal investment to be able to do that. Do we have to recognize our state championships and our all-staters, not only in basketball and football and so forth, but academic teams, band? We have a rich tradition, and isn't it worth it to honor that with doing those types of things? So I think you could have a 2-hour discussion on that, but that's just kind of where I am on that type of thing. We installed Promethean Boards. These are interactive TVs that took the place of the old smart board that I remember when it was the greatest, newest technology. Now nobody wants a smart board because you have to turn the lights out. Sometimes you can see it, the projections, but on interactive TV, and you can manipulate it, and through grants and other funding, we've been able to provide that in probably 95% of our classrooms. Any teacher starting this next year that will go through the training to use it, we're going to provide that. We've been able to do that for educational purposes. Our teachers are the ones that typically, when it comes to computers, if you've been in teachers' classrooms, most of them would have the old desktops, the ones that come out of the computer lab and set, and then the teacher needs one. Oh, there's one in that dusty closet, go get it. Well, with virtual learning, different things going on, we were able to provide a laptop for every teacher, and then a bigger monitor where they can split jobs and be working on more than one thing at a time. Most of us had those in our offices, a lot of us. I didn't until I became superintendent, and I thought, man, this is pretty cool. But why shouldn't our teachers have that? And they should have the best. So I remember probably back in 2008, 2009, I had on my first day agenda, my talking points in my first faculty meeting, and I was excited because, now, hold your seat, we purchased 9 laptops, not for Stigler District, just for Stigler High School. We didn't have to share it with anyone. 9. And I said, guys, we can use them any way we want to. Well, today we have, I'm going to say last estimate, probably over 1,700 Chromebooks, laptops within our district that we've been able to buy with federal funds. So every student, we're one-to-one. We have additional Chromebooks and things for testing and other things that are going on. So we've been able to make a lot of leeway there. We purchased a new filtering system. We were finding that our filtering system was filtering out content kids didn't need to be on at school, but when they took them home, it was free reign. So our filtering system now follows that Chromebook when it goes home, wherever it is. So we felt like that was important. Currently installing a new camera security system. These last two are things that we feel like in today's society are important. New camera security system throughout the district to enhance security and to monitor activity. It was my best friend as a high school principal was my camera system. Because if it's he said, she said, it takes you all day. If I didn't do that, Mr. Morgan, wait a minute, punch button. Did you do it? So they say video doesn't lie. Things that happen at the school at night. There were many times that just mere presence of that camera keep things from happening. So we feel like that's important. The highlighted, we just voted in July board meeting to put in a new intercom system at the high school and kindergarten. This way, from experience at the high school, here's what I would have to do. I would have to go to the intercom and make an all call throughout the building. I'd have to have Sherry Markham or someone go out in the hall, and I would text, can you hear it, Sherry? Can you hear it? Now, think about if you have an intruder. And I don't want to go to that extreme, but think about that. I can't do that. Things have to happen in a split second. And so we had that order to do that in high school. The other situation was the disconnect between the main campus of the elementary and the kindergarten. It was only telephone. So with this, Ms. Garman or whoever, they can communicate directly right on that second with the office or back and forth. Any intercom announcements made will go to the main site, will also be projected into those kindergarten and pre-K classrooms. So that we thought was very important. I wanted to, I skipped this one, I want to go back and make sure to cover it. Last summer, we had a top dressing put on the football field to provide better playing surface for our students. I had some comments, yeah, it's all about football. Well, no, it's not all about football. We did baseball a couple years ago. Softball's in good shape. But the football field would look really nice from the stands, but when you go down on it, it had holes in it, it had dips in it. So bring in that top dressing and get that nice and smooth. We did that to kind of upgrade that last summer. Financially, I just wanted to point these things out. When you talk about those bullet points on the front, here's one thing that I've always been impressed as I've worked here about 23 years in the Stigler system. You look on the news and you'll see school districts that pass bond issues for new technology. They pass bond issues to purchase new school buses. I'm not going to say we won't ever, because my time here will end at some point, but we've never tried to pass a bond issue for any of those things. Facilities is where we feel like those things should be used. In all those things that we've been able to do in the last 2 years, if you look on that second page, our child nutrition fund, this takes care of our cafeterias, that kind of thing. In the summer of 2020, we ended that year with a balance in child nutrition of $161,000. You can see in 2 years' time, that's almost double. And that's attributed to a lot of, we've been serving a lot of meals. And so we're pretty proud of where that is, and what that has allowed us to do is, if you look at that, child nutrition is totally self-sufficient for the first time. And this is how I know it's over 30 years, because Judy Hamlin said it's self-sufficient the first time since she's worked there. 34, 35 years. So that's where it's at, over 30 years comes from. Building fund, I would say, I can't go back much farther than 20, 25 years. Healthiest it's been in recent history, at 1.3. General fund, you could kind of see there, and then you get down to Esser 2 and Esser 3. The reason that we need to kind of not make a decision today or next week on whether to run a bond issue or anything right now, what we need to get a consensus on as a community is where. Okay, and we could have a 3-hour discussion on that also. But do we go to northeast of the high school and create a new elementary campus up there? Or do we try to renovate and improve the existing campus? The reason is, if you'll look at that Esser 2 money that's still available, we started out with a little over 1.4 million in that appropriation. This is kind of what we have left right there, and that's after a bunch of roofing projects and things that have gone on. That's what we have left. Esser 3, that next 2.6, that appropriation was 3.4 and some change. And the only requirement, hard requirement, was that you use 20% of it on learning loss. And so that's approximately a little under $700,000 that has to go toward learning loss. And that's what we've used that money toward, and we could talk about that some other time if you would like. But the main thing, if you look at that Esser 3, deadline for this to be spent is September 30, 2024. Now, I'll tell you this, we could take that whole 2.6, and this is all we're gonna use to improve the elementary school. And we can go down and slap that whole 2.6 at that elementary school, and you wouldn't even hardly be able to tell. To me, that's not a good use, if you're not really gonna be able to tell what you did. There were times that my mom on Sunday morning sent me in to take a bath and all that. I don't know why, but I'd go in there and slap some water on me and come back out. Well, that would be, to me, kind of like throwing this 2.6 at it and say, that's all we're gonna do. The reason we need to know direction, because construction is a slow-moving locomotive. And it takes time to plan, it takes time to initiate, it takes time to get started. And that 2024 sounds like a long time, but we need to start looking at some directional plans on where we're gonna spend that money. And we need some guidance, some consensus in the community, because I could tell you, if it was just David Morgan, you decide. Number one, I could tell you what my decision would be, but that doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter what Janice wants, or Linus, or anybody. It matters what the community can come in agreement on. It matters what our consensus can be as a community. And so that's what we're going to try to reach. Future plans. We have a Plan A, Plan B, some of you mentioned. We put out an online survey. We gave you a copy of that same survey today, and what I would like, even if you filled out one online, I think we had a couple that said they had. I would like for you to fill this out and give us this feedback today, because when we finally go to the board on this, I would like to, on those surveys, say, here's our results from the online. Here's our results when we gave this survey at the chamber meeting, luncheon. And then here's our results if we have a town hall. And those are three different, little bit different demographics probably. So to give them that feedback separately. On addressing the grade school, Plan A, if you look at that, it's pretty simple, straightforward. Plan A would consist of building a new elementary school complex located at the school property northeast of the current high school. If you look at this approximate cost, that is as of right now. That's, I'm gonna say 2 weeks ago. I think personally that when I see that highlighted area, we would probably need to run a bond within the next 15 months. I think that's about as late as we can wait and still be able to really utilize that 2.6 million in that Esser money that we talked about earlier. So, but I think we need to wait as late as we can in that 16 months to allow goods and services to keep leveling off. Because it was at one point, if you look at the graphs, Melissa, on that new building, if you look at this right now, at today's cost, look at the classroom space. 53,807 feet, and that's it. That's estimating that at $250 a square foot. So that's 13.4 million basically. If we, let's say that we get to where the costs were back down around $200 a square foot, then that's a savings, if my math is correct, of about 2.69 million. So this is, I'm gonna call it worst case scenario. Now, we may have better experts in the room. This is talking to people, talking to our architect. We feel like the prices are gonna start leveling out and settling. But, you know, who can predict that? But we're saying this is our worst case scenario right here as of today. So you can see if we were to wait just a little bit and then run that, by that time maybe this is settled closer to $200 a square foot there. Your kitchen and cafeteria space is always more expensive at $280, maybe that settles down to $250. So there is some leeway there. But this would kind of be what we're looking at on building up, and we build these classroom spaces in pods, and if you'll notice, they're kind of sectioned off down that hallway. So you've got room for a pod for each class, a grade level, and then in the middle, offices up front. The kind of triangular shape is the media center, cafeteria, and then PE gym in the back, and then special services on the left side going down that hallway, and then there'll be safe room square footage within that building. It's pretty cut and dried on the new. We go in and build new. If we look at Plan B, Plan B would be in stages, and what we would do is, if we got a consensus coming out of this and that no, the consensus in the community is, for whatever reason, we need to stay at the existing site, then within the near future, we're gonna start looking at bidding. And Melissa, would you go ahead on that animation? We're gonna go ahead and start what we're gonna call on the existing buildings, the existing main grade school building, and what I'm gonna call the first grade building, this strip right over here. And we're gonna go ahead and start the bid process using that ESSER 3 money on re-roofing the existing building and this first grade building. The first grade building would be a single slope roof that later on with the new construction would tie right into the new construction and basically look like a part of that new building. After that, there's our new roof. This is one thing that that's fine. This is one thing that I feel like that we need to do is we need to correct our fencing at the grade school. One of the things, if you have a new school up on the 40 acres, when you see someone approaching that, campus doesn't need to be there, you have time. I'm not saying you have a lot of time, but you have some space there. At this campus, you don't. Somebody could walk out of a backyard onto that campus, and I think most of us in here today could scale that fence. I think I could. Now, you may see me down there hung up on the top of that fence, but I think I could scale that fence. It's this high. If it got up to here, maybe not, but where it is right now, I think I could get over. I don't think that's, in today's world, I don't think that's sufficient. So I think we need to improve our fencing at that existing site if that's where we're gonna be. And then, after we got as we did these 2 new roofs, that would leave us about, and you can see all these numbers in your handout, that would leave us about that would leave us about 1.8 million in that Esser 3 fund. And, that new cafeteria, if we add about $1 million with it, that would allow us in the near future to go ahead and re-roof, and possibly get that new cafeteria built. Okay, next slide. The next would be to this light blue area is new construction. I think that's about 7.5 million is what in today's prices to build that. Once again, you could look at that square footage price, and it could go down, hopefully it could go up. But this is, I believe, 16 or 18 classrooms. It would include this wing going out this way, this would be our 3rd and 4th grade wing, and we'll kind of see that later. And what's involved there, I think we'll see it later. We would add that. Once we get that built, the first thing we would do is move our 3rd and 4th grade into that wing. We would empty this existing building out and go in and totally remodel that existing building right there. Once we got that remodeled, we would move everybody out of the 1st grade building into the remodeled building and come in and remodel this 1st grade right here. All this, like I say, the numbers are in the plan. Okay. We'll go on. This just adds in there future drop-offs. If you drop off and pick up at the elementary or any of our sites, really, you know what headache it is sometimes. Just kind of shows you over here, we would pick up our 1st and 2nd grade. We would start establishing that. 3rd and 4th grade over at the front, and so forth. Our buses would still unload and load over here to try to disperse a lot of that traffic. And then future parking. This is one thing you need to consider in both plans, is because in the new plan, it provides for a gymnasium. It doesn't, and that's in that 18.9 million. It doesn't in this existing campus. So you would need to take the amount, I think it's 2.5, 2.8 million, that it would cost it. That is the cost for the new gym at the new site, and that 13 some odd million, you really need to add about 2.5, 2.8 to that to get realistic. Because new gymnasium at the existing site, we just have in the future. We don't have it added into the total cost. So that's not quite apples and apples. This allows for future growth, but for right now, did it have just the breezeway? Okay, and we'll go to this one. When it's all said and done, this would kind of be the, of course, right now the room for growth wouldn't be there, the future gym would not be there, but we would have the existing 1st grade building would house age-appropriate pre-K and K with their playground. because they don't need to be playing on the same, right, playground. See, this is stuff the high school principal never thinks about. We all play on the same stuff, pickups and cars and stuff. But, their age-appropriate playground, that would be the same at the new site. First and second grade with their age-appropriate playground, third and fourth grade the same. Your offices and the face of your building would face, I believe that's Sixth Street that way with the parking across the street. And then your main entry and offices, your special ed rooms coming down that hallway toward the cafeteria and kitchen, then all your deliveries to the kitchen would come in here, and buses would come in and out right there. So that's kind of the existing site, and for no other reason that there's more to explain about that, I think, than the new site. But with that, that's kind of what's in front of us on which one does our community support. And so that's what we're attempting to do. A lot of it's coming through these surveys, so we'd appreciate if you would fill those out before you leave today and give them back. You don't even need to put your name on it. But at this time, any questions? The hard part.
This building is so old that Jim Smith went to school there 77 years ago. That's how old it is.
You know, I wasn't even working here.
And it was probably there 5 or 6 years before then.
Well, I tell you what, and I'm gonna say this, I work with really good people. And one of the things that Melanie Garman, when she come in this last spring, and I'm gonna say this without cracking my voice here, but she said, if we could just have one thing at the grade school, could we get new carpet in the hallway? She didn't ask for, she just, this year, if we could just get, and then she knows how I think. Here's what my gosh, how long are we gonna be using that carpet here? Yeah. And how can we not? And so they were in there, right now, that hallway, it's got new carpet in it to get us through whatever. But I wish, I don't know if anybody in here has seen them, but Stevens Carpet had the bid on that, and they come in. And that hallway, I wish you could see the pictures they sent me after they took up that carpet, the dirt. Now, you can't shampoo that up. Our custodians are doing their job. But when that carpet was laid in 1992, you've had little ones stomping on that for 30 years. That carpet. And I mean, no lie. And Mr. Pemberton, Peepo, our maintenance supervisor, he said, we thought we had a bad floor underneath there. The floor's smooth. It was all of the dirt underneath, and I'll show you that.
It's on Facebook. He posted it on Facebook.
It's on Facebook.
And if you look under Stevens Carpet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he posted it on Facebook.
Well, it's on there, and I mean, you can see their footprints in the dirt. So that's just amazing to me.
My dad's 87 years old and he went to school there. So, probably at least 82, 83 years.
And, you know, there's gonna be people that think we need to build new, there's gonna be people who think we need to do existing. And I can agree on some points, both of those. There's one point of view I can't, and that's that we don't need to do anything. And here's what I would ask, and I'm not gonna say anybody's worse of a person if they want this or whatever, but here's what I would say. Go down to the elementary and go in the middle of that campus, just sandwiched right in between the cafeteria and the existing building, there's a little white house. If you've seen it from the outside, Go by and have Miss Garman take you in that little white house. That's where our multi-handicap in this town are housed. And if that's okay, then we'll just have to agree to disagree. So, but that's kind of, do we have any other questions? That was a lot of.
Is it right that the existing renovation additions will be within 3 million of the new? Counting the gymnasium?
If you add the gymnasium and you say to add apples and apples, and you add the cost of the gymnasium to the 13,
Yeah.
whatever, then it takes it up roughly within 3 million. Okay? And that's comparing apples and apples.
Well, in the new building up on northeast, that's gonna move everything, even the kindergarten to right?
And to be fair, that it would happen on both of them.
Okay.
Because our ultimate goal is to get all of our grade school on one campus. And that's for
Well,
security.
but you would put, with the northeast deal, you would put everyone kinda in the same area.
Put them right there, yeah.
The logistics of picking everybody up at 3 different sites or 4 different sites, that's always just blown my mind, because I've been, up there and everything, is trying to pick up kids and they have to haul from here to there. Just the safety aspect. And I think that's one thing everybody needs to think about, is the safety of having everybody in one area, and what you can do up there, because you're not limited up there. You can still put more safety, as you needed it and everything. You could put kind of a compound around the whole thing. It was all up in one area. I know, I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but just within the last month, at the elementary school, there was, talk about somebody walking around with a gun, and that may not have happened, but still yet, the confusion and the deal of trying to keep, 2 different areas, or 3 or 4 different areas, to have really any kind of, safety measures, the way it is now, it'd be hard to do.
On the Plan B option, does that include a renovation of utilities, or do you have a projection of cost savings of new energy efficient lighting and stuff like that the district would be able to achieve in Plan A versus Plan B?
No, now, as you mentioned, utilities, one of the first things that would happen at the existing site, while we're doing the 2 roofs, before we begin the cafeteria, so that would push new cafeteria at least, let's say, the end of next summer. Because as soon as we could, we would set up, hopefully, to get on PSO's list. Because you may know this, where this purple and red right here, there's a main utility line that runs through there and that serves this neighborhood. And they tentatively, we're not gonna schedule anything till we know, but tentatively, they would come in right when school's out and start redirecting that utility service. That would disconnect the entire campus. And then, we don't know if we could get help with this, but PSO, what they're telling us right now, it would be a cost to the district of about $48,000 to get us connected back in to that utility service. And we would hope that we could get all of that done in that summer before we needed to come back to school. Now, I don't have numbers at this point where we're at, like on electrical cost, would it be more efficient to, I can't believe it wouldn't be, okay? But to go to the new site rather than the existing site. I would think so, but that's just a perception on my part. I don't have any hard data.
Now, I didn't know if the architects had provided any kind of a estimated cost savings through, you know, lighting and AC and cooling costs and stuff like that.
Yeah, not at this point, because right now, we just have him contracted to do preliminary planning. So. Anyone else?
I'd just like to add that anything the school does, and I have told you guys this before, but Bobby and Dana and I work constantly to try to get somebody in our industrial park, somebody to come to Stigler and want to invest their money. And the very first question that our site selectors, and they're very aware that we don't have the school system buildings that we need to have. We have excellent teachers, we've got excellent personnel, but the first thing that a lot of times when we go into their meetings, they will come up to me and say, has Stigler done anything about their schools yet? And I have to say no. But in addition to that, we were doing a economic development workshop, and I was sitting in the workshop and they said, you know that the most important economic development person that should be on your team is the superintendent of schools, because when the schools have football games, when they have basketball games, when they have academic needs that bring busloads of kids, followed by carloads of parents into your town, that's economic development. So our schools are crucial to improving our quality of life. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
What's the payback period in bonds? You haven't got that far.
We haven't gotten that far. We will, when we kind of see, we've got of course, the estimated amount, but then when we see right now, we're looking for direction. We're looking for which way do we want to head, and then we'll kind of look into the bonding side of it. And really, if we're looking at existing site, you're probably talking about, well, I'm just guessing, 2-3 years before you may even get to that point.
Yes.
So,
What's the time frame if you were talking new site?
I think, and it's in here, I think we need to be looking at a bond issue within no later than 12 to 15 months from now. Because that allows you, let's say we have a bond election a year from November, that would be November of '23, then we can get the things rolling and have the process of spending that initial amount. We'll spend it first before any bond money. So we would get that spent before that deadline hits, that September 24th. That's why there's just a little bit of a sense of urgency. And that, the sense of urgency is more so on direction right at this point than.
How long will the survey be up on the website where people can go? In other words, when will we make some kind of decision as to what plan we're going to go?
As of right now, tentatively, we have it on, unless we don't feel like we have the input we need, because I want the board to have every piece of input they can before it's put before them, because that's huge to have that put on your table. So we'll probably have that up until the week before the board meeting, which is on the 8th. Tentatively, we're looking at addressing this in August.
On the Plan B, the existing, it's gonna cut quite a bit of the playground out, probably one, because it's already, I know Ms. Grant, I've been up there since my mom's
this, do you have that fencing, maybe?
It looked like it was gonna be cut.
Now, Chelsea, this, and you're correct. Now, what we'll do is up on the top, we own those lots across that street. And, we kinda had talks about the possibilities really good about closing that street and taking that in, to use. We would probably do that somewhat like this and then leave this over here for a parking when parents come to Thanksgiving dinner in the cafeteria. They can, instead of coming through the campus, they can park over here and come up this corridor to the.
I don't think people have realized how much it's already been cut.
It has condensed
It's
quite a bit.
a lot. So I think if, you know, if we go to remodel, it's gonna hardly be anywhere.
You want these things?
And if the new site, the playground will be behind, you know, kind of.
And it'll be age appropriate on each side of that back.
Surrounded by the new facility.
Any other points or questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
On the first page, right above the yellow highlighted area, it talks about the new camera security system. It says the entire district, is that like all, each location, high school, middle school, and elementary, that there's new camera, okay. Just making sure.
And that's going on right now. Okay. Janet, I guess
I know that Shane has an announcement.
Oh, I was collecting, I'll stop for a second. I wanted to offer this to you guys, I'll pass around a little sign-in sheet, but we have created, it is a customer service online class. Commission Tech's created it, it's completely free. So if you're business, it's not really geared towards, banking or any sort of administration in general, customer service class. So we're gonna have it online. If you're interested in it, I'm gonna send a paper around. Just put your name and email address, what business you're with, and if you wanna send your new employees through it or existing, like I said, it's completely free. It takes about an hour. It's not really too difficult, but, that's something that we had kind of heard in our, meetings that we had is that just like just a basic customer service class would be something that would be useful. So, like I said, it's not complex, but it's free, everybody loves that. So, and also I wanted to report, the numbers haven't officially came out yet, but I miscalculated. I think I spoke and said we were gonna be somewhere around 3,500 training hours, for the year, which I was super thrilled with. But I'm bad at math and it's actually gonna be about 5,900. I messed up and I didn't calculate all of them, so, we're thrilled about that, and I think that's the most we've ever had here, so, and it's been a group effort of everybody involved, and thank you guys for taking me in and, allowing me to serve you guys, so. But I'll pass that around after we do that.
And, Anita, this will be on the Stigler News Sentinel website, that's my understanding. So, anybody else have any announcements? You have a community calendar with lots of stuff going on in our area. And, appreciate everybody that came out to the meeting and, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so with our staff meeting for the charterpreneurs this last week, they are going to start a catalog with charterpreneurs. They sent out an email to any Choctaw-owned businesses, and they're asking them to send the information that they have so that we can have a catalog. So there will be a Christmas catalog so that you'll be able to order for your Choctaw-owned businesses. And I'm not sure who all will be in that, but if you received an email and have a Choctaw-owned business, please fill out the form that was attached.
And if you have not gotten with Bonnie, Bonnie's one of our, assigned just to Haskell County. Before she came, we had a shared, consultant that covered several counties, but Bonnie covers just Haskell County for the small business development of the Choctaw Nation. So if you know a Choctaw-owned business that is not registered with the Choctaw Nation, get in touch with Bonnie. She's a wonderful asset and a great addition to our community. Any other announcements?
One more thing, our CNA class that we had for the first time in 3 years, they all graduated with 100% pass rate, which is really bad. We are starting another one. We're gonna start next Tuesday. No one's too low, so we push it back to the 16th, so you guys know if you want. When you're taking enrollment, so we're trying to get that going, get the word out, so.
And if you didn't sign in, please do so.